do on Aslaug, and I was so grateful because I love humans, I love psychology, I'm a total psych nerd, so to dig into that was so much fun, and I love the gray area. It was like, you know, looking at something in black and white just kind of isn't a very great way to live, and looking in the gray, it challenged me, and I also think it helped me grow as a human being to be looking at someone from that aspect. I think it increased my empathy, and seeing humans as the complex individuals we all are. Yeah, but to go back to your question, I was surprised at the fan reaction before she came on. I was so excited to be a part of a TV show, and no less one that was like, it had some buzz in it. You know, there hadn't really been a show about Vikings before, and it's Michael Hurst, and you know, he has such a wonderful resume with all of his historical fiction. I loved Elizabeth as a film, and I was just really excited about everything. And I remember like I think it was like the Viking Facebook page before episode 9 aired of season 1. I posted a picture of me, well, Aslaug, me as Aslaug. And I read like the first couple of comments. And
never read the bottom of the internet. Rule number 1.
But so here, I was surprised because I didn't see it coming, because I was like, and I feel like it was short-sighted of me as a person, but like, oh, of course, no one wants to see like a beloved couple get broken up, especially by, you know, like a third party being involved.
The other woman, yeah.
So it's like, I understand why people felt so passionately about the character coming on. But I'd done all of this work and looking into paganism and like learning that monogamy wasn't one of their morals. That is not how the Vikings lived.
Yeah.
So I just kind of thought like, oh yeah, well, that's what happened. And so to be judged from a modern perspective when it wasn't like the beliefs that these people had, that was surprising to me. Although like in hindsight, I'm like, well, duh, of course people would think that. Like I get pretty emotional about certain shows that I've watched when I love or hate characters, so I get it. But yeah, I very quickly stopped reading comments because they weren't going to be good for me as a human, and I've sort of stuck to that. Yeah, I don't love.
And she's a great juxtaposition to Lagertha as well, though, because it shows the two sides of a Viking woman's life and culture. I mean, Lagertha was able to explore that heroic side of being a shield maiden, going off to battle with her man and things like that. But I always saw Aslag as just as strong. There's different qualities of strength. And it's like, it's that classic, she's the mother of 4 of Ragnar's children. We have to remember that as well. Lagertha only was the mother of Björn. You raised those 4 famous sons. And you come into it as perceived to be almost a princess. You've got all this beautiful wealth, and you've come from all of that, and you expect things to be done from you. And part of the actor's arc was this woman learning to just be what it is to be a stay-at-home mum and bring up these 4 very crazy children. And that to me shows strength. It's like that guy is away at work all day, and he's like, "What did you do all day?" And you're like, "I'll wring your neck.
You only knew, you bastard."
And she was thrown in the deep end.
Hey, do you want to babysit your kids?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm getting at is that, Lagertha, she's away fighting, she's doing that. But in Viking times, a woman, a man's job maybe was to go and hunt and trade and travel. But compared to the Christian European society of how women were perceived outside of Scandinavia, a woman was giving the keys to the castle. A woman would have a belt with every key to every lock, and that meant the house, the possessions, the riches. She may have been cooking and weaving and tending to the children in the farm, but Aslag ends up being the ruler of the whole of Kattegat. So not only is she a mother, not only is she trying to keep the the home life steady and on an even keel. She's trying to keep the whole of Kattegat under control until her husband Ragnar, who doesn't even give her the time of day when he does come back, doesn't even say thank you. So I mean that shows a tremendous strength.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit on something that I also dug into for Aslaug. I think she loved being a mum, and I wanted her to really enjoy that and love her children, because I needed vulnerability for her. I thought if anyone is ever going to get on board with this character, we need to see vulnerability. We need to see her care about something deeply and have love for something, and then also see her pain and see her suffering. I thought those two things were going to be really important for Aslaug, and I wanted that to be seen, and so I chose moments because I don't think dialogue is the full story, right? Like there's always subtext, there's always other stuff going on. So I really pushed for her having love and vulnerability underneath the things that she was saying. And I went for that. But I think she really loved Ragnar. I think it was an unrequited love for her. And I think she lived in that. I think she was attracted to him because of his power and who he was and what he had done at the time. But then I believe she fell for him and it was unrequited. And I wanted that to be a huge part of her, because that seemed like a pretty painful place to live. And you're right, he never really gave her anything until their last conversation. And I'm so thankful for that conversation. That was Travis's idea, that scene, when he basically kind of thanked her and said goodbye right before we went our separate ways and ended up in Valhalla. Well, did Aslaug end up in Valhalla? I don't know.
Do you know, I think that's a really interesting point. Just kind of going back to the way Aslaug was sort of judged from a modern perspective. I have to say, I was pissed off with a lot of the fan reaction, because I saw over and over again how within this second relationship that Ragnar had, that he initiated. Thank you very much. He came to you at the waterfall. It just over and over, Aslaug was demonized for being a homewrecker. And I thought, where are these, women and men who are modern fans? What are you guys thinking? Like, why is it all the woman's fault? She didn't get pregnant by herself. She had 4 babies with this guy.
Feminist because of the reaction to Aslaug. I didn't I cared about women's issues, obviously, and I wasn't completely living under a rock, but I wasn't aware of society's ingrained sexism until the fan reaction to Aslaug. And I have to say, it opened my eyes, and I just thought, wow, people are demonizing the woman for this. And he went and slept with how many other characters?
I know.
And it's completely fine. But I also found that there were other men on the show that do questionable things. Clive Rollo does some questionable.
I know. You just reminded me. I was thinking about the amount of men that Lagertha ends up sleeping with, and the amount of women that Ragnar ends up sleeping with, and you only really slept with Harvard. So, and he wasn't necessarily a real human.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Harvard thing is up in the air. I mean, she slept with him. I'm not denying that. But who he was and what that was about, and I also the whole Harvard storyline. He comes into town and basically I had done a lot of research into narcissism for Aslaug, and then Harvard comes along, and I was like, he seems to kind of fit the bill here as well. And then I kind of dug into cults and cult leaders, and I was like, Harvard's a cult leader. And that's kind of how I looked at it with Aslaug, is that she was deeply vulnerable because, her husband never really loved her back the way that she wanted. And he's left her and she's raising these kids on her own. And in breezes this man who kind of like seems like the answer to all of these problems. And so then I had increased empathy for anyone that's ever been in a cult as well. But that's how I looked at Harvard.
And it was easier back in those times as well. I mean, he could have been just a wanderer with amazing tales, but because the Vikings believed that the gods would walk among us, and they believed that Heimdall, for instance, would easily be able to take on human form just to look around and be all-seeing, and Odin himself had done it many times just to get into a lady's knickers.
He was helping heal women through having sex with them. Like those words came out of not the word. Like I'm kind of paraphrasing, but he said that. And like I remember reading the script when that kind of came out, and I was just like, oh, I'm sorry, what? Okay.
Sexual healing.
Right.
That's
well.
Marvin Gaye.
We get Kevin Durant on. We're just going to have to be like, we're going to make him Harbin into some like girly guru from like Burning Man or something like that. It's just kind of like.
Yeah. So that was that story. Yeah.
Do you think Aslag really could see to the future? Kind of evolve her kind of images that she could, the prophecies she see, or do you think maybe it was? I don't doubt that she believed it, but do you think maybe she would believe these visions to be true, or do you reckon she really did have kind of some supernatural powers?
That's a good question. I didn't really answer that. Same thing, Clive. I think she absolutely believed it 100%. I don't think she was being dishonest about it. I think she believed that. Whether she actually could or not, I think is a question for people that are watching and your own beliefs that you subscribe to when it comes to spirituality and religion. And, yeah.
Because I think that's what's interesting. If you really do buy into the fact that she is special, then you can also buy into the idea that maybe the gods did deem her to be special, especially if her parents were as incredible as they're made out to be, that maybe it could have been a god coming to visit her, and she was possessed when her children were drowning in the ice and things like that. And I can completely believe in what Michael was going with that, and it's nice to keep it up in the air for whatever you want to believe.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the parts of the show that I thought was done so well, was showing what Vikings believed in, but not really taking a stance on whether it was true or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was really effective the way the show did that, and I enjoyed that part of the show. I think it was maybe maybe the most, because we got to see historically how these people lived, what they believed in, but it never really, like, I don't think Vikings forced it down anyone's throat. Like, this was real,
that's why I like when Michael he describes it like Michael describes like an Easter when Jesus comes back from the dead and the stone is pulled away. To a Christian, that is completely real. That's what happened. But if you're a non-believer, it's just a silly story. And it's the same with the Vikings. They completely believed that these were real visions, that they weren't just visions, they were real. So it's kind of quite easy just to go, well, is it a story or is it's real to them?
Yeah.
Alyssa, give the fans a little insight on what it was like because you came at the end of the first season, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's this established cast. It's never easy to come in as a cast member when a show has been running and everyone's sort of bonded and stuff. What was the first scene that you shot? I think I've heard the story, but I want the oh,
really?
There. Yeah, I think the one with well, you tell me if it's the one, but what was it like to go on set? Did you find it intimidating? Give us a little behind the scenes juice. What was it like joining the cast?
Oh my God, I was terrified. I was so nervous. My first episode was with Ken Girotti. I mean, we all love and know Ken, the director. I actually went and shadowed Ken while he was filming another show in Halifax. He's brilliant. But when I first got on set, it was his first day on set. It was the first day of episode 9 being filmed. And he said something about him being nervous, and it like made me relax, because I was like, oh, he's nervous too. Like, we're all nervous here. So that helped. But I think the first scene I had, and now, I hope my memory is serving me correctly, was having to climb over sleeping Vikings in a tent